I've said it so many times on this channel. I agree with a lot of music historians that have called 1984 the greatest year in music. I mean, there were a ton of great songs and albums released that year. But after going back and reviewing the music that came out in 1985, I'm not so sure that 84 is better than 1985. And you're going to see what I mean when I count down my top 10 songs of 1985 next on Professor of Rock, including so many great songs, like a movie song that was turned down by, seems like everybody, except for a female friend of rock band. But she was pregnant and she couldn't do it, so she talked her husband into it and it became his band's biggest hit. And there's another one that's the most misinterpreted song ever. Even to this day, is played for all the wrong reasons. And another #1 hit that the band admittedly ripped off the title from a rival band's song. They paid him $5 for it. It's the best of 1985 coming up on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time, especially today. If you remember the Doublemint Twins, you're gonna dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now, click the white button and click the bell so you know when stuff comes out. Also, go vote for the best band at ProfessorofRock.com. Today's head-to-head matchup is the Beach Boys versus Kansas. If you sign up at ProfessorofRock.com, I'm gonna start doing some live streams with everybody there. I can't believe it's already 2025, and since it is, I thought that we could do a top 10 for 1985. It's been over 40 years now since a lot of these came out. This was a challenge. This was even tougher than 1984. Again, my criteria for this countdown is that the song had to be a top 40 hit. So let's get right into it. Kicking off our countdown of the top 10 songs of 1985, my choices. It's a song that for years was despised by the band that recorded it. At number 10, I got Simple Minds with Don't You Forget About Me.
Don't you forget about me.
Don't You Forget About Me is the money track from the 1985 film The Breakfast Club, one of my favorites ever. It's synonymous with the iconic legacy of the film directed by the late John Hughes, one of my favorites.
The Breakfast Club.
Keith Forsey and Steve Shipp penned this track exclusively for the movie. Now, Forsey, who co-wrote movie hits like Shakedown for Beverly Hills Cop 2 and the popular title track for Flashdance, he oversaw the Breakfast Club soundtrack. Keith Forsey revealed that Brian Ferry of Roxy Music was his first pick to record the song, but Ferry declined it. A big fan of the Scottish band Simple Minds, Keith decided to pitch the track to them after a few people had turned it down. He personally delivered a cassette demo. Simple Minds originally wanted to use their own song Alive and Kicking for the film, but Don't You Forget About Me had been written specifically for the script. It was the only option.
Don't you.
At first, the band couldn't wrap their heads around why this was the case. Actually, in an interview, Simple Minds lead singer Jim Kerr, he opened up about their initial frustration over not being allowed to record the song that they wanted. He said, wait a minute, you want us because you love the songs that we write, but now you want us to do your song?
Forget about me.
At first, they flat out refused to even consider it. Jim and his bandmates were firmly against recording anything that they had not written themselves. A lot of people turned this amazing song down, like I said. Breakfast Club co-producer Michelle Manning said, and I quote, "I remember offering the song to Billy Idol. He didn't understand. I think a lot of people that pass will never say that they did pass, because we had the movie and that demo, which was literally just like the final song with Keith, and people were just shutting us down right and left." But initially, there was one artist who said yes before Simple Minds, Chrissie Hynde. She was married to Jim of Simple Minds, Jim Kerr. The Pretenders frontwoman loved the song, and she was down with the whole thing. Only problem was she was pregnant, and she refused to record a music video while pregnant. However, according to Michelle Manning, Chrissie told Jim that he should do it because it'd be a massive hit. Jim, of course, was still resistant, but ultimately he relented after meeting John Hughes and pre-screening the film. Watching the movie helped put the lyrics in better context. And as a result, Simple Minds agreed to give it a go. Don't You Forget About Me broke Simple Minds in the US for sure. Shot all the way to number 1 on the mainstream rock chart and the Billboard Hot 100. It's also number 1 in Canada. And by the way, Alive and Kicking, the song that Simple Minds originally wanted to be the focal track for The Breakfast Club, that was also a big hit. It went to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 about 6 months later. Definitely helped that. Coming in at number 9 on the top 10 songs of 1985, got another smash from another blockbuster movie. In fact, my favorite movie of all time.
So heavy in the future, is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull? Back to the future.
It's The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News.
Power of love is a curious thing.
Power of Love wasn't really a curious thing at all. It was a smart idea by director Robert Zemeckis for the movie Back to the Future. So I sat down with Huey. He told me all about it.
Power of love.
Actually, Power Love, on the surface, had nothing to do with the movie. The lyric has nothing to do with the movie, and there's no real love object in the movie even. The way these things work best is when the song stands on its own, and then the movie stands on its own. If the song is clearly written for the movie, it kind of diminishes the song somehow.
By the way, the People's Music Hall of Fame, by yours truly, for you guys, our first inductee is going to be Huey Lewis. We're doing that on February 7th. Make sure to get your tickets up here below. So while Back to the Future raked it in at the box office, The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News got massive airplay around the world, owning the pop charts in Australia, Japan, Canada, and the US, where it reigned at number 1 on both the mainstream rock chart and the Billboard Hot 100. All right, moving on to number 8. It's the song that came out as the swan song for the band Wham, or the group Wham. Talking about Careless Whisper with one of the greatest saxophone solos ever. Despite what many fans believe, this song wasn't drawn from a real-life high school romance of George Michael's. In fact, the idea came to him in the most ordinary of places, came while boarding a bus. George was only 17 when inspiration for this song struck him on an ordinary bus ride to his job as a cinema usher. As he stared out the window, the words began to flow, including the nod to his job in the first verse, the silver screen. Even at that young age, though, George's gift for poignant and mature songwriting was undeniable. Lines like "Guilty Feet Have Got No Rhythm" that hinted at the brilliance he would later unleash as a solo artist, showing that even in his teens, he was destined for greatness. George Michael claimed that he got more compliments on his writing of the sax solo at the beginning of the song than on anything else he's ever written. They went through 10 different saxophone players to get that one right. Finally, Steve Gregory got the song that George heard in his head, or the part. Most Wham songs were all George Michael, but this one had a little extra magic, Andrew Ridgeley. The other half of Wham, of course, and he got a co-writing credit. Now, George could have kept the sole writing credit. I mean, he wrote most of the song, pretty much all of it, but he knew the song would be huge, and he knew that he was going to be quitting Wham to go after a solo career as it was coming out. So he knew that it would help Ridgeley for the rest of his life. It would set him up. But you know what? Andrew actually came up with a chord progression on his Fender Telecaster. While the track appeared on Wham's second album, Make It Big, it was also released as George Michael's solo single. It was credited in the US to Wham featuring George Michael. Careless Whisper made history as Epic Records' first million-selling single, and it became George Michael's biggest UK hit. It sold an impressive 1.4 million copies, physical copies, more than any of his other songs, whether solo or with Wham. It hit number 1 in the US, as well as the Netherlands, Australia, Peru, Bolivia, Canada, Switzerland, and Iceland. Coming in at number 7 on our countdown, the best of 85 is Only the Young by Journey. This is my favorite Journey song. Only the Young was actually a collaboration between Journey's Jonathan Cain, Steve Perry, and Neil Schon. This song was originally written for their 1983 Frontiers album, but the track was dropped at the last minute in favor of Back Talk and Troubled Child. Also, Ask the Lonely was dropped. Can you imagine that? That would have been every bit as good as Escape. Afterward, the song found a new home with the band Scandal, who recorded and released it in 1984 on their album Warrior. A lot of people don't remember that one. Marked the first commercial release of the track. Journey's version of Only the Young found its moment in the spotlight as part of 1985's movie Vision Quest. It was on the soundtrack, played at the beginning and the ending of the film.
But since he met the girl of his dreams, all he can think of is her shape.
Released as a single, it hit number 9 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, and it went to number 3 on the mainstream rock chart. The song earned gold certification as well, selling over 500,000 copies. It's a scorcher. Coming in at number 6 on our countdown, it's Boys of Summer, the masterwork of nostalgia and introspection with lyrics by Don Henley and music by the great Mike Campbell. Actually, a lot of people said I should have chosen this for 1984, but it actually peaked in 85, and that was the rule. Guitarist Mike Campbell from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers actually offered it to Tom Petty and the band, and they rejected it. They said no. So he actually offered it, as he'll tell you, to a rival, Don Henley. And here's the story.
I had the song basically the way it is, except I had a different chorus. And musically in the chorus, when I showed it to Tom, it went to this weird minor chord, which really did not lift up at all. And I remember Jimmy and Tom were listening to it and they go, that part sounds kind of jazzy. And I said, yeah, you're right. So they passed on it. And then I got the call from Jimmy that Don was looking for a song. So I went back to that and I thought, I'm just going to change these chords in the middle for the chorus and make it go into a major key. And, he just was inspired by it and came up with that great song. Once again, there I was, the right place at the right time.
You said that when Don listened to it, kind of put his head down and he didn't know for sure. What he was thinking.
He was like this. Didn't tap his foot, didn't nod his head, anything. I thought he hated it. And again, at the end, he goes, okay, thank you. And then I left. And then he called me and said, I think I got the best song I've ever written. I go, really? He said, let me hear it. So that's the way he is. He doesn't give it up.
Boys of Summer went to number 12 in the UK, number 7 in Ireland, number 3 in Australia, and was a double threat here in America, reaching number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the mainstream rock chart. Halfway through our countdown at number 5, it's arguably the most misinterpreted song of the rock era. It's got my vote for sure. Talking about Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. Born in the USA is often misunderstood as a patriotic anthem. They played it at the 4th of July at fireworks shows. It's actually about the struggles faced by veterans, Vietnam veterans, when they came back home. While soldiers from other wars were celebrated as heroes, those who fought in Vietnam were largely ignored. Many returned with PTSD and so many other major health issues. The way we treated these soldiers was just dismal, horrible. One of Bruce's most iconic songs, it came from a chance meeting with a veteran, Ron Kovic. He had enlisted. He was left paralyzed after being shot in combat. He had enlisted to fight, but later became an outspoken anti-war activist. In 1976, he wrote a book called Born on the 4th of July to share his story. This was turned into a movie. You remember 1989, Tom Cruise was Kovic, and he was nominated for an Oscar. In 1980, while on a cross-country road trip with a friend, the boss came across a copy of the book outside of Phoenix. He actually found it at a drugstore along the way. Around 2 weeks later, Springsteen was in L.A., staying at the Sunset Marquis Hotel, and surprisingly, Kovic was there too. They ran into each other by the pool and they ended up having a really deep conversation. Kovic invited Springsteen to join him for a visit to the Veterans Center in Venice, and Bruce gladly accepted. The visit turned out to be a real eye-opener for the boss. Bruce started writing the song in 1981 under the title Vietnam. That was the working title. But when director Paul Schrader sent him a script for a movie he was working on called Born in the USA about a rock band grappling with life and religion, Bruce decided to change the title and the chorus to his song to that. Now, Schrader had hoped that Springsteen would appear in this film, but Bruce didn't take the part. Instead, he stole the title for the song. But to be fair, he did write Light of Day for Schrader to use in the film, and Schrader named his song after that, so it was kind of an even trade. Born in the USA evolved through many versions before becoming the title track of his 7th album, released in 1984, The Blockbuster. And if you would have heard the version for Nebraska, you would have never thought that this was a patriotic song, because you actually heard the lyrics.
Go and kill the yellow man.
But when Springsteen put that anthemic chorus in there and the drumming by Max Weinberg, Bruce described the song as a complex picture of this country. Now, Born in the USA peaked at number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 8 on the mainstream rock chart. But surprisingly, it charted much higher outside of the States, such as New Zealand and Ireland, where it went all the way to number 1. It was a number 2 single in Australia and number 5 in the UK. And this was one of those songs, the first time I heard it, it just shook me up. So moving on with our countdown in 1985 is a song that had the most memorable music video of the MTV era. Talking about Take On Me by a-ha at number 4. a-ha originally wrote and recorded the first version of this song in 1982 under the title Less Than One. It had different lyrics, but it featured the same iconic keyboard riff. In 1983, the song caught the attention of industry veteran Terry Slater, who became their manager and helped them land a contract with Warner Brothers Records later that year. Now, in early '84, they reworked the song into Take On Me and recorded it with producer Tony Mansfield. It was released as a single, but only in Europe, where it reached number 3 in Norway, their home country. However, it did not make an impact elsewhere. It actually bombed in the UK. They also made a video for this version, which was pretty unremarkable compared to the iconic one that would come very shortly after. So they just reworked and changed just one thing. They re-recorded the song. They changed out the synthesizer. The new version was programmed on a Roland Juno 60 synthesizer. With this one change, it became an all-time smash. It boomed in the US, of course, thanks to its groundbreaking video as well, where a cartoon character invites the viewer to step into this world, his world. The video was created by Michael Patterson and his wife Candice Reckinger, who would later work on videos for Opposite Attract, Luca, and Impulsive. Now, the idea for Take On Me stemmed from Patterson's animated film Commuter, which won a Student Academy Award in 1981 and used a similar animation style. The Take On Me music video is credited with bringing experimental animation into the mainstream, including later when the MC Scat Cat would dance with Paula Abdul. It also inspired the transformation scene in the 1980 sci-fi film Altered States. To create it, every scene was shot live and then was projected onto paper and traced. With Take On Me, a-ha made music history as the first Norwegian band to land at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US. But the song wasn't just a success in America, it dominated the world. It reached the top of the singles chart in nearly every European country, and it also climbed to number 1 in Australia. And it's just as popular today as it was then, I gotta tell you. This was tough to leave out of the top 3. Coming in at number 3 on our countdown to the top of 85, I've got Night Shift by the Commodores. Man, I love this song. It's a song that ranks as one of my all-time favorites for any year. I mean, it resonates with me for its sentimental sincerity as one of the best tribute songs of the rock era. Night Shift, of course, is a tribute to the great Marvin Gaye and the great Jackie Wilson. both of whom passed away in 1984. The song was initially conceived as a soul version of Rock and Roll Heaven, that 1974 hit by the Righteous Brothers. The song where they imagine rock legends like Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin forming a band in heaven. But in Night Shift, Marvin Gaye and Jackie Wilson are on Heaven's night shift, playing some really smooth sounds.
And I still can hear him say,
Songwriter Franny Goldie was brought in to help with the lyrics. They wanted to get it just right. She'd actually just seen the 1982 movie Night Shift starring Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton, directed by Ron Howard. And that inspired the title. A lot of people aren't aware of that.
It makes the day seem dead by comparison.
Night Shift was truly significant because it became the Commodores' biggest hit after Lionel Richie left the band in 1982. J.D. Nicholas, a former backup singer for Diana Ross, was brought in to replace Richie. And the song features lead vocals from drummer Walter Orange. Oh, he's so great. He also sang lead on Brick House years earlier. And then J.D. Nicholas takes the second verse, and then both Orange and Nicholas share lead vocals for the rest of the choruses. With this one, the group proved that they could have a significant hit without Lionel, like I said. The touching sentiment of Night Shift connected around the world. It crested at number 2 in Israel and South Africa and Belgium, and then went to number 3 in the UK, Ireland, Finland, and here on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US. It was also a number 1 hit on Billboard's Hot Black Singles chart, and it won the 1985 Grammy for Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal. Very, very sweet moment for the Commodores. One that I would argue is their best song. All right? Man, it was a tough battle between my number 1 and number 2. We're going to give you the bridesmaid position right now. At number 2, I've got the heartfelt, powerful ballad, Broken Wings by Mr. Mister.
take these broken wings.
Broken Wings was co-written with lyricist John Lang, whose words were inspired by the writing of Cahill Gibran in his novel of the same name. I was a guest to Mr. Mister's frontman and the song's co-author Richard Page at his home in Southern California. We had a great discussion about this amazing composition.
But John Lang and I, really close friends, went through a lot of stuff. Steve George, of course. And we got into the thing that everybody was doing at the time, which is doing tons of drugs and, just partying and going to studio. I mean, you go into a session and guys would have these 3-gram vials of Coke, like sitting on their synthesizer, and people were chopping it up. It was like, Freud used it, it's not addictive, and it's a creative person's thing. Well, that's how we kind of all got into that. But of course, we've seen the damage done. And it really kind of like derailed me seriously for a few years.
And learn to fly again, learn to live so free.
Coming out of that and deciding that wasn't going to be a part of our lives anymore was really what Broken Wings was about. And John had been reading Khalil Gibran, and a lot of, he's a big reader, and he loves poetry, and he loves spiritual type, pithy kind of teachings. Mm-hmm. And he came to me, and I had this thing worked out on the bass, and the bass lick that
Man, Broken Wings soared to number 1 in Canada and here in the US in 1985. Such a huge song. All right, we're to the number 1 spot. Any guesses before I do it? Put your guess below what you think it might be. This one's probably pretty easy. It was tough to decide which song from this band. They had a great year, but it's time to unveil the number 1 song of the top 10 songs of 1985, surrounded by dozens of worthy choices, besides the other 9 tracks on this countdown. This is a song that I truly believe is one of the most timeless classics of the entire era. Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. Everybody Wants to Rule the World is another, sometimes misinterpreted track. I mean, despite its jangly, catchy song, the lyrics of the song are actually pretty dark. The concept is quite serious. It's about everyone wanting power, about warfare and the misery that it causes. That's what Kurt Smith said about this song. Getting straight to the point, though, Everybody Wants to Rule the World is about the relentless pursuit of power and the unfortunate consequences it brings. Truth is, when man gets any kind of power, he starts to exercise power over people, unrighteous dominion. And that's what this song is all about. In an interview with Mix Magazine, the band's producer Chris Hughes shared that they had spent months working on Shout. Of course, the song that was the first single in the UK off Songs from the Big Chair. Oh, one of the most perfect albums ever.
Shout, shout, let it all out.
Toward the end of those sessions, Roland Orzabal, he came into the studio and played two simple chords on his acoustic guitar, which became the foundation for this song. Hughes said, and I quote, "Everybody Wants to Rule the World was so simple and it came together so quickly, it was almost effortless. In fact, as a piece of recording history, it's bland as hell." The members of Tears for Fears initially had trouble connecting with the original version of the song, which included the lyric, "Everybody wants to go to war." When the lyrics were changed to the now famous phrase, everything just fell into place from there. Once we got those lyrics in place, it just took on this joyful sound. That's what Roland would explain. So Everybody Wants to Rule the World, it actually came from a line in the Clash's 1980 song, Charlie Don't Surf. So did Tears for Fears rip this off? Well, Joe Strummer of the Clash, he thought so. He once told a story to Musician magazine about running into Roland at a restaurant and telling him, "You owe me a $5." Now, according to Strummer, Roland just reached out of his pocket, pulled out a £5 note, clearly acknowledging that he'd borrowed the line for this hit song. Hey, everybody steals from everybody. That's what I say. Everybody Wants to Rule the World broke TFF, Tears for Fears, worldwide. They deserved it so much. Their debut album, The Hurting, that was released in '83, is an incredible record. But they just became instant superstars with their second release, Songs from the Big Chair, that featured the song I'm naming as the best of 1985. And like I said, it was tough to decide which song because Head Over Heels is one of my favorite songs ever. This song was a #1 hit pretty much everywhere. #1 in Canada, New Zealand, here in the US, top 10 everywhere else. There you have it, the best of 85, an extraordinary music year. So my honorable mentions now and my picks for Artist of the Year, Band of the Year, and Album of the Year. My honorable mentions are Voices Carried by Till Tuesday, Don't Come Around Here No More by Tom Petty, and The Night Is Still Young by Billy Joel. A Night Is Still Young is the song I played when I got down on one knee to ask my wife to marry me nearly 20 years ago. It's our song. Artist of the Year, I'm going to give to Phil Collins. Band of the Year, Tears for Fears. And his Album of the Year, I got to go with Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits, just by a hair over Songs from the Big Chair and No Jacket Required. What are your picks? What are your memories of 1985? Meat is Murder was also a great release from that. I'm only including top 40 albums here in the US. Man, seriously, 1985, it was tougher than 1984. I want to know what your songs are. What's your top 10? What's your greatest album? What's your greatest song? What's your greatest band and artist? Let's have a great celebration of 1985, one of the greatest, grandest years of music ever. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community where we celebrate the rock era every single day. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.